Hi everybody, it's Sarah Cray with Let's Make Art, and today we are doing our March watercolor calendar project. And it's Snowdrops.
Oh, so cute.
Okay, honestly, I really had a hard time figuring out what projects to do for March because March is one of those seasons that's like, depending on where you live, will vastly inform the type of feel of the painting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I was just like, do I make it snow? Because it is snowy here in Missouri, usually still in March. And so I was just like, do I make it snowy? Do I make it rainy? Is it starting to spring? You know what I mean? Like all of these things. And then I thought, you know what? There is a flower that blooms in the snow, and they're called snowdrops, and they're beautiful. And I thought this is like the perfect painting to kind of combine the various weather that you might be experiencing into one painting. Okay?
Perfect.
We are going to be doing this project in 4 steps. So our very first step is we are actually going to draw. I'll show you guys how to draw these snowdrops. It's pretty basic, so don't stress out about that. Our second step is we are going to paint our background and our foreground. Our third step is we are going to paint our flowers, and our fourth step is we are going to do some snow textures. Okay?
Piece of cake.
Piece of cake. Piece of crumb cake.
Piece of crumb cake.
Name that movie.
Casper.
Yes. I was talking to the audience, but you did a really good job.
I just love that movie.
Me too.
Piece of cake. Piece of crumb cake.
Okay. So before we get into painting and drawing, let's do our oath.
Okay.
If you can raise your right hand and repeat after me. I promise to be kind to myself.
I promise to be kind to myself.
I promise not to compare my work.
I promise not to compare my work.
And I promise to have fun.
I promise to have fun.
Thank you. Now I'm going to show you guys how to draw snowdrops. If you want to practice on a sheet of paper before putting it in your watercolor calendar, that sounds great. And if you guys have no idea what we're talking about, we came out with a watercolor calendar that is dateless. So you guys can paint pictures up here and then have a calendar down here. We're doing one a month. So we're doing March right now. So you guys can enjoy the March painting all through the March month.
Love it.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
You got it? Okay.
Got it.
So when it comes to these snowdrops, they're very low to the ground. And there's like a few shapes that I want you guys to think about. One, the leaves of these snowdrops are actually like do you guys remember when you were little and playing in grass, like during a soccer game or during recess, and you sat in the grass and you would like pull apart the individual blades of grass? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah.
So the leaves of these flowers are actually very similar to that grass. So they kind of go straight up. They're kind of rigid, and then they just go to a point. Okay. Nice. So there's like tall ones. So that's it kind of facing you. And then if it were turned on its side, because remember, leaves and flowers are 3-dimensional, right? So we're going to see them at different angles. So this is kind of it flat looking at you. And then this is it kind of more on its side. You see how narrow that is? Mm-hmm. So you can have different thicknesses, and there's nothing wrong with that. They kind of grow, like if this is the ground here, they don't all come from one stem. It's not like the grass is coming out like this. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Instead, you have the ground, and then you have grass, 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 flower, grass, grass. Do you see that? Mm-hmm. Okay. So when it comes to our leaves shape, you're going to be kind of looking at something like this. Again, very basic. You don't have to overthink it. Here's that thin. Here's it on its side. Not a big deal. Now, the stems itself that the flowers kind of come off of, kind of a little bit of a hook to them, because they grow up and then they go back down, because this is where the flowers are going to come out of, okay? Now, this kind of hook shape can go either to the right or to the left. I'm doing 2 flowers. I'm just going to keep them both to the right, because compositionally, I'm going to put my flowers on the left-hand side. So by angling them to the right, I'm telling the viewer to look on the right-hand side. If I were to put the flowers on the left-hand side of the composition and also turn my flowers to face the left-hand side, it would feel very off balance, because all of the intentional or all of the lines and all of the action is happening only right here. Mm. By at least angling them to the right, it gives the viewer go, oh. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, it leads your eye.
It leads your eye, exactly. So, but you can have one going to the left. If you want to do 3, you could do that, all of that kind of stuff. Just remember, they kind of come up and then they go back down. They do not go straight up with the head at the top, okay? They have to kind of, like a lamp. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. It's hanging. Think of gravity, okay? So then the last thing we're going to do are the petals. Now the petals are actually very simple. Think of when you were little, drawing little petal flowers. This is the shape. Like this is the petal shape. It's narrow at the top, it has a big belly, and then it narrows at the bottom too. Now, when you think about the heads of these flowers, you are going to think about different, what's this word? Like state of opening, state
Different
of
blooming stage?
yes, state of bloom. Thank you, Michael.
Yeah.
So when they're not blooming yet, they're going to be closed, which means that that petal shape, we're pretty much only going to see that main petal. You might see a little bit on the side here, but that's it closed, okay? And then think about how these petals on the sides here hinge out as it blooms, okay? So if I were to do one that's in a state of bloom, I'm going to have my middle petal here, okay? And then I'm going to think about these side petals hinging out a little bit more. Okay?
Okay.
So that could be a state. You can even, you can do one a little bit closer here. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All of these are right. There's no wrong answer. And if you want, you could even, like, I'm going to do one that's mostly closed and then one that's a little bit more open. You can look at different pictures of these because there are petals on like the backside. Remember, it's a 3-dimensional flower. But for simplicity, I'm not doing those. You can if you want to. The reason why I'm not doing them is because I would have to take the time to separate these two planes. And I just don't feel like doing that.
All right.
So I'm just going to keep it simple.
Yeah.
And we have every right as artists to do that. So never feel like you have to render it exactly how you see it. There's nothing wrong with simplifying, okay? But just remember that the basic petal shape is going to be narrow with a big belly and a narrow top. Okay? And then think about, too, these petals, if you were to put it on its side, that's why they're a little bit skinnier on the side. See how they're not fully doing that?
Mm-hmm.
Because they're turning. Okay? Okay. Is that helpful?
Super helpful.
Great. Let's get to drawing on our actual thing. So here is our paper. I taped off the edges using my favorite tape, Holbein soft tape. I'm going to just kind of roughly put in just a horizon line, but this is loose enough that it's like, is that a horizon line or is that just like a hill in the snow? I don't know, not a big deal. And then here is kind of where I want to put my flowers, right about here. And the reason why I'm doing it here is if you break your paper up into thirds, you usually want the activity to happen on the parts where the thirds intersect, okay? So I'm not doing it right in the middle because compositionally that would really throw things off. So I'm going to go either to the left or to the right. I'm going to go to the left on purpose, and then I'm going to put my blooms or angles going towards the right to activate this space over here. So I'm going to do, like, let's say this is where the flowers are coming out of right here. So I'm going to have a leaf going here. We're going to do one kind of coming on the side, another leaf, and now I'm going to draw the heads of my flowers, okay, or the stems.
That was quick.
It's not a big deal. It's just marks on a page. And listen, you are going to want to erase and start over a million times, but I'm asking you to be patient and kind with yourselves. Lightly sketch. If you want to make a slight adjustment, you can while you're painting. You don't have to do it in the drawing, okay? And the biggest thing when it comes to people who are not comfortable enough with drawing is they think that the drawing has to be perfect before you get to painting. That's not true. The drawing or the element is literally just a basic guide, and then you can make decisions as you're painting, okay? So don't get caught up on this step. So now that I have my little things going down, okay, now I'm going to do my petals. This one, there's like a little, what's the base that the petals all come out of, honey? This part right here.
Let me look.
Okay. So they have that. And I'm going to do petal, petal, petal. So that one's more closed. And then this one here, I'm going to have more open. So I do my main petal, and then I'm having some, I kind of come out, open up a little bit more on the side.
It's called the receptacle.
The receptacle.
There you go.
Wonderful. Don't forget to draw the little receptacle, this little bump where the stem and the petals meet. It's like this little green bump. Okay.
Perfect.
Now, in this situation, you might be wondering, oh my goodness, these two run into each other. What do we do? For me, I want the stem to be behind the white blossom because I think that would make this white blossom pop out more. If I were to put the green stem in front of these white petals, then that's going to push that back, which is not bad, but I think it will just make it feel like it would show more attention to the stem when I want the attention to be on the white flower. Okay, so if they run into each other, I'm just going to erase where that stem goes and make sure that the white flower is in front. Okay?
Okay.
That's it. That's our drawing. Now, of course, you can change it. A couple things that before we get to painting, I want to point out. You don't want the leaves to be touching the tips of the flowers because when two objects are too close, like barely touching or touching, it adjusts the planes in which we see things. Okay. So if you have a leaf that's doing this, you see how when it touches that flower, you're like, wait, what's happening here?
Mm-hmm.
So you either need to purposely make it much longer so it goes past the flower, or to simplify, which is what I'm doing, I'm just going to make it shorter. Okay. So then I have good space in between here. If they get too close, it just makes people go, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Okay.
Wait, one more time to the camera. What does it make people do? All right, perfect.
What is happening?
Okay, good.
So just kind of pay attention to that type of thing, okay?
Okay.
All right. I feel like this is ready. Okay, I feel good about the composition. I feel good. You can make it bigger, smaller, whatever you want. Part of me wants to make it bigger. Should I?
No, give yourself some grace. What did you say earlier?
Give yourself some grace.
Right.
You're going to want to draw. Michael,
Thank you.
good job.
Yeah.
Because guess what? You're going to want to draw and redraw it a million times. If it's not glaring, let's just paint it.
It's not glaring. I think it's pretty.
Wonderful. I think you're pretty.
You stop.
Okay. I'm going to take, you can take around 6, around 12, a quill, like a larger brush, because we're going to fill in the background with water. So I'm just taking water.
Not over the flower, though.
Not over the flower. You can go over the leaves, but I am going to be avoiding the flower petals. Now, if you're brave, you can use masking fluid to mask off the flowers, but sometimes I just don't, honestly, sometimes I really just can't be bothered with masking fluid. So I'll just paint around it, or I'll just use bleed-proof white to shape it if I lose my shape. Okay, now that it's nice and wet, I'm going to take indigo. And if you want to grab a tiny bit of phthalo to put in there for a brighter blue, you can.
Listen, a tiny bit, though, because phthalo is bold.
Phthalo is strong. Okay. And then I'm just going to be painting around my blooms. I want the strongest hint or the strongest value of color right behind the white flowers. Okay. If you want to avoid the leaves, you can. Sometimes I paint over them a little bit. Oh, look at that.
I've been filming you for years. I still am just mesmerized by when the paint goes.
I know. It's
So good.
best. It really is the best. And I'm just going to spread it out. And I'm not going to be too
Fussy?
fussy. I'm just spreading it. I'm just like being like, let's go. Let's spread this paint. You can do another layer if you want. And then because I know that it's going to be really hard to get like a perfectly smooth, like even wash, I'm going to help the texture a little bit by kind of doing like a little bit of this. And then while it's wet, let's grab some salt. And that's also because we're going to be doing some snow textures a little bit later too. So this is going to help with kind of that look of snow. And then this is where it gets tricky because you want to like get as close to the petals as you can So I'm just kind of going in there and shaping some of this. Now, because we drew our petals, you're going to have pencil marks. Pencil marks on a watercolor painting is not the end of the world. Just leave them. You know what I mean? Not a big deal. Not a big deal in any way.
Not worth your stress.
Not worth the stress. And for me, because I'm like, okay, I know I need to make these leaves green, and this is really covered in blue, I'm going to lift. So if you're feeling like you can lift some of that blue out where that where your leaf is going to go, then you can. Okay, and then I still have this same color on my brush from when I did the background, and I'm just going to put in a little bit of a shadow here because it's kind of growing out of a little bit of snow. And I'm just going to loosely dry brush in some shadow here. So I have paint on my brush. I hit it off my paper towel. That's going to suck up the excess moisture, which is then going to make the texture of my brush kind of like chattery. And this is just giving us snow texture on our ground. Okay. And then I'm just going to try and straighten the horizon line a little bit. But don't mess with it too much because we don't want like crazy blooms. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Just to kind of just even it out a bit. And then now if you're feeling like, I think I can lift a little bit of color out, go for it. Okay. Now we dry. Now, if you're someone who really struggles with getting salt textures, here are a few things that I have heard. It matters the type of water that you're using. In some places, if there's a lot of minerals or things in your water that come out of your sink or your faucet, that can affect how the salt works in the water. So if you don't ever get any kind of texture or anything like that, it might be worth it for you guys to try distilled water, which is where you can buy it at the store, and maybe getting that distilled water where there's kind of really nothing in there, that salt might actually have a reaction. Okay.
That's really interesting. I never thought about that, but that probably would affect it a lot.
That was not my idea. I saw that in the watercolor Facebook group and I went, this person's probably right. Whoever said that, thank you. I'm not smart enough to think about things like that.
Also, if you paint with ocean water, probably won't matter that you sprinkle salt in it. Yeah. Don't paint with ocean water.
I think somebody did paint with salt water once. I feel like they did in the group.
That'd be cool.
Yeah. Okay, can we pause and look at the freaking salt texture that's happening here?
It's real good.
Stunning, you guys. Stunning.
That's Sarah's Scottish accent for all you at home.
If you missed the Highland Coo tutorial. Stunning. Oh my gosh, I love it so much. I don't even know. Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. All right, now once we feel good that this is dry, I'm going to take a round 6 or round 10, round 12, hopefully at this point you guys maybe have some favorite brushes. So I'm going to put in the leaves. So I'm using a round 6, and I'm just going to kind of follow the drawing that I have. If you go a little bit inside or outside of it, it's not a big deal. I grabbed a little bit of phthalo with my Undersea green there. If you also want to drop in some yellow, you can. So that's just the gold, cute gold. And then this one is a bit thinner because it's just on its side. Now remember, watercolor is transparent. So where we have this strong kind of horizon line be in the middle of our leaves, it might create like a little bit of a line. It's not the end of the world if that happens, okay? And I'm going to switch to my liner brush to do the stems. Now, because our background is so dark right here, these green stems aren't really going to stand out that much. And I just want to say that that's okay. And then this one is going to go behind those white flowers, okay? So I just lifted up my brush and then continued the line behind it. Now I'm going to paint the receptacle, right?
I think so. I'm going to look one more time because that doesn't Listen, you guys, I went to school for biology and I love botany. It doesn't sound familiar, but that's what the internet said. I'm going to look one more time.
The internet lies sometimes, you know? I'm just thickening the stem kind of where it's coming out of the ground a little bit. And if you guys want to do more leaves or less leaves, you can. This is your painting. And I didn't do an outline because I wanted to give you guys freedom in terms of composition. Okay. And I'm just going to lift out some of this green a tiny bit on this leaf right here because I think it would be pretty. So I'm just taking a damp brush and I'm just going to lift out a little bit of that paint.
All right. It is the receptacle, but also if those are actually teeny tiny green little like leaf portions,
Yeah.
they're called sepals. That's what I was thinking.
Sepals.
But just looking at the picture, I think it's the receptacle. And I think I was wrong.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you trying. I know that I put you on the spot with literally no warning
It's been
all
10
the time.
years. It's been 10 years since I've done any college things.
Okay, now the last thing I'm going to do before I splatter some snow is I'm going to take a round 2 or a smaller detail brush and I'm going to just kind of shape my petals. Now you don't want to go too crazy with this because what we don't want is a halo around our flowers. So it's just a little bit here, kind of shaping the petals, but again, don't go too crazy. Or go crazy, it's your painting, you know?
Uh-huh. Why not?
And if you're feeling like if you like the ink and wash type of painting and you want to just outline it in pen, like go for it. This is your painting, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Basically, don't always listen to what I say. I'm just doing a little bit of a yellow wash in there just for a hint of warmth. And this is where, before I add the snow, this is something that's completely up to you, which is I really don't like how the stems of my flowers have like completely, there's no dimensionality to them. You see what I'm saying? They're just a flat. So I'm going to take a little bit of my green and mix it with bleed proof white. Now, bleed proof white is a gouache, which is a type of watercolor that's opaque. So because of that, I can get a little bit of a highlight on them.
Nice.
And it just makes it pop just a little bit. And if that's too white, you can just go over it again in a little bit of another layer of green. It's up to you. But sometimes just doing a highlight on something just kind of makes it pop. I will say it does kind of tend to thicken your line if you do layers of it. So take that into account. And then the very last thing we are going to do is splatter white paint. So I'm going to remove anything.
Hide your phone.
Hide
your
your phone,
iPad.
your iPad, your Apple Watch, your TV, all of that.
Hide your kids.
Hide your kids,
Don't
hide your
splatter
wife.
your kids.
Okay. And I'm just going to
Beautiful.
and the size of the brush that you use and the amount of water and paint is going to determine the size of your splatters. Okay. So if you're using a round 2 to do this, your splatters are going to be itty bitty. Sometimes I like to do bigger flakes. Kind of. Oh, that was a big boy.
It's dripping off the flower. It's snow dropping.
Yeah. Actually, no, I don't like it. You can just lift it. What I do when that happens, because sometimes that does happen in watercolor, is I just lift it and then I just
Scribble it out.
scribble it out. Bam.
Perfect.
Gone. And if you're feeling really, really, really edgy, you can put a slight shadow on your petals here. I'm going to use a tiny bit of like yellow green because if you look at white flowers and where they come out of, sometimes that color kind of comes out of onto the whiteness a little bit, like a little yellow green, just a touch. But you don't have to do that if you don't want to, okay? That's it.
Perfect.
We're done. Isn't it cute?
It's so cute. We definitely have to take the tape off, though. That's the best part.
Yes, I will take the tape off. I'm going to dry it first. Now, because this is a watercolor calendar, because this is watercolor paper, the paper is going to warp a little bit no matter what. Usually if you tape it down to a surface and let it dry, like fully dry, like a 24-hour dry, then it's going to stay mostly flat. If you remove the tape right away, it's going to warp as it dries, okay?
Okay.
So I'm only removing the tape for you guys at home. Try and keep it taped down to the pad or to the table or something so it can dry flat. I'm so in love with how that salt texture turned out.
Yeah, it really is great.
Okay. Last one.
Perfect. It's so perfect.
Isn't it beautiful? Okay, let's look at March. There we go.
Cute.
And the great thing too, depending on where you guys live, if it is not snowy where you live, you can change the background. If you were to do like a light blue gray, then it would just kind of look like an overcast day, or you can do a bright blue if you want it to be sunny. Like you can just change the coloring of the background to inform the overall mood and the weather. And then that can be more accurate to what you're experiencing. Okay?
All right.
Should we do an overview of everything we've painted so far?
Yes.
Okay. We had January,
Oh, love it.
February,
Perfect.
and now March.
Listen, I think I like March the best.
March is so fun. And if you guys don't have these calendars, we sold out of them, but don't worry, we put more on order. So when we get those back in our shop, we'll let you guys know. Just sign up for our email list or go to letsmakeart.com and sign up for our email list, and we'll send you an email when they're back in stock.
Perfect.
Thank you guys for painting with me. I'll see you next time. Bye.